The mist clings to the forest like a shroud, tendrils of fog wrapping around ancient trunks and swallowing the faint light of dawn. It is here, on the abandoned outskirts of the village, that the investigators first lay. Eyes on it, a structure, half hidden by time and nature. The building stands silent, its walls weathered but intact, a forgotten relic of another era. As they approach, the air grows heavier, each step crunching softly against the damp earth. The team's leader, a woman with a steady gaze and a notebook clutched in her hand, pauses at the entrance. The door, once painted a cheerful blue, now hangs crooked on rusted hinges. A faint outline of a child's drawing is still visible, a sun with stick figure rays, now faded to a ghostly whisper. Inside, the air is thick with the scent of mildew and decay. Dust motes dance in the beams of their flashlights, illuminating a scene frozen in time. The room is a classroom, its purpose unmistakable despite the years of neglect. Desks are arranged in neat rows, their surfaces scarred but still bearing the marks of young hands. Chalkboards line the walls, their surfaces cracked but retaining faint traces of lessons long erased. On one board, a single word remains, barely legible. Yesterday. The investigators exchange glances, the weight of the word settling over them like a pall. Their flashlights sweep across the room, revealing details that defy explanation. A stack of textbooks, their spines cracked but pages still legible, sits on a shelf. The dates on the covers are from 1989, the year the 20 students disappeared. A map of the village hangs lopsided on the wall, its edges curled but its details sharp. A calendar on the teacher's desk is open to October 1989, the days marked with meticulous notes that end abruptly on the 15th. It is the desks that draw their attention next. Each one holds remnants of a life interrupted, a pencil snapped in half, a notebook with a single page torn out, a ruler etched with initials. One desk in the second row contains a small leather-bound journal. Its cover is worn, but the pages inside are filled with a child's handwriting, neat and precise. The last entry is dated October 12, 1989. It reads, "The fog comes closer every night. I think it's watching us." The investigators move as one toward the back of the room, their footsteps echoing softly. A door there, once locked, now hangs ajar. Beyond it lies a staircase descending into darkness. The air grows colder, and the mist seems to seep through the cracks, as if the forest itself is intruding. The team's leader steps forward, her hand hovering over the doorframe. She hesitates, then pushes the door open fully. The basement awaits, its secrets buried beneath layers of time and silence. But it is not the basement that holds their attention longest. As they turn back to the classroom, something catches the light, a glint of metal on the floor. One of the investigators kneels, brushing away the dust to reveal a small tarnished key. It is attached to a frayed length of twine, the kind a child might wear around their neck. The key is warm to the touch as if it had been held recently. The team exchanges another glance, unspoken questions hanging in the air. The classroom, once a place of learning and laughter, now feels like a tomb. The investigators know they have only scratched the surface of a mystery that has lain dormant for 32 years. The official records claim the site was cleared, the building abandoned, the children's disappearance a closed case. But the evidence before them tells a different story, one of secrets buried, truths obscured, and a fog that seems to hold its own memories. As they prepare to leave, the lead investigator places the key in her pocket, its weight a reminder of the task ahead. The fog outside has thickened, enveloping the building as if to reclaim it. She pauses at the doorway, looking back one last time. The classroom seems to whisper its secrets, a silent plea for the truth to be uncovered. The investigation has only just begun, but already, the lines between past and present, between the living and the lost, have begun to blur. The fog is rising, and with it, the echoes of 20 voices that have been silent for far too long. The village has always been a place where time moves differently, where the past clings to the present like the fog that rolls in from the surrounding hills. It is a place of quiet routines, of fields that stretch to the horizon, and of stories passed down through generations. But there is one story that the village cannot forget. No matter how hard it tries, the story of the 20 students who disappeared in 1989. Their names are etched into the heart of the community, a wound that has never fully healed. In the town square, there is a memorial, a simple stone monument with 20 names carved into its surface. Flowers are always fresh at its base, placed there by hands that remember. The families of the missing gather here every year on the anniversary of the disappearance, their faces etched with grief that has softened but never vanished. They speak in hushed tones, their voices carrying the weight of unanswered questions. They were just children, one mother says, her fingers tracing the name of her son. They couldn't have just vanished. The official story is well known, repeated so often that it has become a mantra. The students ran away, lured by promises of a better life in the city. It was a time of political unrest, the authorities said, and young minds were easily swayed. The search was called off after a few weeks. The case filed away as a tragedy of youth and idealism. But the villagers know better. They remember the fear that gripped the community in the days after the disappearance, the way the fog seemed to close in around them, as if the very land was holding its breath. There is one family, the Kowalskis, who live on the edge of the village, their farmhouse a testament to resilience. Their daughter Anna was one of the missing. Her room remains as it was the day she left, her bed neatly made, her schoolbooks stacked on the desk, her favorite doll sitting on the windowsill. Mrs. Kowalski still prepares a plate for her at dinner, a habit she cannot break. "She'll come back," she says, her voice steady, but her eyes giving away the doubt. They all will. The villagers have their own theories, whispered in the safety of their homes after dark. Some say the children were taken by the government, part of some experiment that went wrong. Others speak of a stranger who was seen in the village. In the days leading up to the disappearance, a man who asked too many questions and left too suddenly. But the most persistent rumor is about the fog itself. Old man Gregor, who tends the fields on the outskirts, claims he saw lights in the mist the night the children vanished. It wasn't natural, he says, his voice trembling. The fog took them. The investigators, when they arrive, are met with a mix of hope and suspicion. The villagers have learned to guard their secrets, to trust no one from the outside. But there is also a desperation in their eyes, a longing for closure that has festered for too long. The lead investigator, a woman named Elena, sits with the families, listens to their stories, and looks at the photographs they bring out, faded images of smiling children, their futures stretching before them like an open road. Elena notices something in these moments of shared grief, a thread that runs through every account. It is not just the loss of the children that haunts the village. It is the silence that followed. No demands for ransom, no clues left behind, no bodies ever found. It is as if the 20 students had simply ceased to exist. And yet, their absence is felt in every corner of the village, a void that cannot be filled. As the sun sets, casting long shadows across the memorial, Elna stands before the stone, her hand resting on its cold surface. She thinks of the classroom they found, of the key in her pocket, and of the fog that seems to watch them from the edges of the forest. The village holds its breath, waiting for answers that have been denied for 32 years. And Elena knows that this is not just an, what does it have to do with the disappearance of the students? She makes a mental note to cross-reference the missing chapters with other records, if any can be found. Meanwhile, another team member, a young archivist named Zofia, has been examining the map on the wall. She steps back, her brow furrowed. "This map," she says, pointing to a section near the forest. "It's not accurate. This area here where the fog is thickest, it's been altered. The original topography would have shown a network of tunnels, but they've been erased." Elena's pulse quickens. Again, tunnels, the word resonates with the sketch in the ledger. She remembers the basement they discovered, the staircase leading down into darkness. Could there be a connection? She exchanges a glance with Merrick, who nods almost imperceptibly. They'll need to investigate the basement further. But for now, they must focus on the artifacts before them. Zofia moves to the desks, her flashlight illuminating the remnants of the students' lives. Each desk tells a story, a half-finished drawing of a family, a math problem left unsolved, a poem written in a child's scrawling hand. One desk in particular catches her attention. It is cleaner than the others, the surface wiped free of dust. On it sits a single object, a small, intricately carved wooden bird. Zofia picks it up, turning it over in her hands. The craftsmanship is exquisite, the details of the feathers and beak remarkably lifelike, but it is the symbol etched into the base that makes her pause, a circle, with a line through it, a mark she has seen before in the ledger's margins. Elena joins her, her eyes narrowing as she examines the bird. "This isn't just a toy," she says. "It's a message. The symbol. It's a warning, or maybe a code. We need to find out what it means." As they continue their examination, the classroom seems to close in around them, the weight of its secrets pressing down. The fog outside, visible through the cracked windows, appears almost alive, as if it is watching, waiting. Elena feels a chill run down her spine, a sense of being observed by something unseen. But she pushes the feeling aside, focusing on the task at hand. The artifacts are speaking, if only in whispers, and it is their job to listen. By the time they leave the classroom, the investigators have gathered a trove of evidence: the ledger, the altered textbooks, the wooden bird, and dozens of other items, each a piece of the puzzle. But as they step back into the fog-laden air, Elena cannot shake the feeling that they are being drawn deeper, into a mystery far more complex and dangerous than they had initially imagined. The village, with its silenced history and its watching fog, holds secrets that do not want to be uncovered. And yet they must press on, for the sake of the 20 students who disappeared, and for the truth that has been buried for 32 years. Elena's mind races as she pieces together the fragments. The ledger from the classroom, the altered textbooks, the wooden bird, all of these point to a deliberate effort to erase the events of October 1989. But why? And by whom? She looks at Mrs. Grigorieva, who has been quietly observing their work. "Do you remember if anyone accessed these files after 1989? She asks. The archivist hesitates, her eyes flicking to the side as if searching for the right words. "There was a man," she says finally. "He came a few months after the incident. He took several boxes, said it was for an official review. He never brought them back." "Do you remember his name?" Elena presses. Mrs. Grigorieva shakes her head. "No, but I remember his face. Cold, unsmiling. He wore a suit, even though it was the middle of winter, and he had a scar. Here." She touches her cheek just below her eye. Elena makes a mental note of the description, her instincts telling her that this man could be a key figure in the cover-up. But for now, they must focus on the documents before them. She returns to the files, her eyes scanning for any detail that might have been overlooked. And then she sees it, a small, almost imperceptible mark in the corner of one of the pages. It's a stamp, partially faded, but still legible. Classified Section M. Her heart quickens. Section M. The same letter mentioned in the ledger. She shows the stamp to Marek and Zofia, their faces mirroring her own sense of discovery. "This is it," she says, her voice barely above a whisper. "This is the thread we've been looking for." But as they prepare to dig deeper, Mrs. Grigorieva places a hand on Elena's arm, her grip surprisingly firm. "Be careful," she says, her voice urgent. "Some secrets are buried for a reason, and some people will do anything to keep them that way." Elena nods, her resolve hardening. She knows the risks, but she also knows that the truth is worth fighting for. The archives may be a labyrinth, but they are also a gateway to the past, and somewhere within these shelves, hidden among the files and the dust, lies the key to unlocking the mystery of the 20 students who disappeared into the fog. The question is, are they ready to face what they might find? The village square is bathed in the pale light of late afternoon, the sun struggling to penetrate the perpetual haze that clings to the air. Elena stands at the edge of the cobblestones, her eyes scanning the faces of the villagers gathered around her. They are a tight-knit group, their expressions a mix of hope and suspicion, their bodies language guarded. She has spent the past few days earning their trust, sharing meals in their homes, listening to their stories, and showing them the artifacts they've uncovered. But trust is a fragile thing, especially in a place where secrets are as common as the fog that rolls in every evening. His grip firm but brief. "I'll talk," he says, his voice gravelly, "but not here. Too many years." They walk in silence to the edge of the village, where the houses give way to fields, and the fog begins to thicken. Pyotr leads her to a small weathered barn, its wooden walls leaning slightly but still standing. Inside, the air is musty, filled with the scent of hay and old tools. He closes the door behind them, the sound of the latch clicking echoing in the stillness. "I didn't want to say anything at first," Pyotr begins, his eyes fixed on the floor. "Too much trouble, but I saw things that didn't make sense." Elena sits on a wooden crate, her notebook open on her lap. "Tell me," she says, her voice steady. Pyotr takes a deep breath, his hands clasping and unclasping at his sides. "It was a few days before the children disappeared. I was at the post office sorting the mail. There was a package addressed to the school. It was heavy, wrapped in brown paper, no return address. I thought it was strange, but I didn't think much of it at the time." "What happened to the package?" Elena asks, her pen hovering over the page. "Ms. Ivanova came to pick it up," Pyotr continues. "She seemed nervous, more than usual. She took it straight to the school, didn't even open it in front of me. That was the last time I saw her before everything happened. Elena makes a note, her mind racing. A package heavy, no return address. Could it have been related to the disappearance? She looks up, her eyes meeting Pyotr's. Did you see anything else? Anyone else who seemed out of place? Pyotr hesitates, his gaze dropping to the floor again. There was a man, he says finally. He came to the village a few days before the package arrived. Tall, thin, with a scar on his cheek. He asked a lot of questions. About the school. About the children. He said he was from the government, but something about him. He didn't feel right. Elena's pulse quickens. The description matches the man Mrs. Grigorieva mentioned, the one who took the files from the archives. What did he want? She asks, her voice urgent. He was looking for someone, Pyotr says, his voice barely above a whisper. He showed me a picture, a girl with dark hair and big eyes. He said her name was Anna Kowalski. Said she was important, that she knew something she shouldn't. Elena's hand tightens around her pen. Anna Kowalski, the same girl whose room remains untouched, whose mother still sets a place for her at dinner. Did you tell him anything? She asks. Pyotr shakes his head. I didn't know anything, but I saw him talking to Ms. Ivanova. They were in the square, their voices low. She looked scared, like she was being threatened. He nods. Elena closes her notebook, her mind piecing together the fragments. The man with the scar, the package, the questions about Anna Kowalski. It all points to a larger conspiracy, one that involves the government, the school, and perhaps even the villagers themselves. But why? And what did Anna know? Pyotr, she says, her voice soft but insistent. Do you think Ms. Ivanova knew what was going to happen? Do you think she tried to protect the children? Pyotr's eyes meet hers, his expression pained. I don't know, he says. But I do know this. She was a good teacher. She cared about those kids. If she could have stopped it, she would have. Elena nods, her heart heavy with the weight of what they are uncovering. The fog outside seems to press against the barn walls, as if listening, as if waiting. She knows they are getting closer to the truth. But she also knows that the closer they get, the more dangerous it becomes. The man with the scar is still out there, and he will stop at nothing to keep his secrets buried. As they leave the barn, the fog envelops them, thick and cold. Pyotr walks back to the village without another word, his shoulders hunched, his hands buried in his pockets. Elena watches him go, her mind already turning to the next step. She has more questions, more leads to follow. But for now, she takes a deep breath, the damp air filling her lungs. The village holds its secrets close, but she is determined to uncover them, one by one, no matter the cost. The children deserve that much, and so does the truth. The village is quiet, too quiet, as if the very air is holding its breath. Elena stands on the steps of the town hall, her eyes scanning the empty square. The fog has rolled in early, thicker than usual, obscuring the edges of the buildings and muffling the sounds of the world beyond. She feels it more than she sees it. A presence, watching, waiting. Beside her, Marek and Zofia exchange uneasy glances, their usual confidence tempered by the palpable tension in the air. We need to talk to the mayor, Elena says, her voice steady despite the unease gnawing at her. If anyone knows what's really going on, it's him. The town hall is the imposing structure, its stone walls weathered by time and neglect. The door creaks as they push it open, the sound echoing in the empty foyer. Inside, the air is heavy with the scent of old wood polish and stale cigarettes. A secretary sits behind a desk, her fingers paused over a typewriter, her eyes widening at the sight of them. We need to see the mayor, Elena says, her tone leaving no room for argument. The secretary hesitates, her gaze flicking to a closed door behind her. He's busy, she says, her voice trembling. It's important, Elena presses, stepping forward. It concerns the disappearance of the students in 1989. The secretary's face pales, her hands clutching the edges of her desk. Wait here, she says, rising quickly and disappearing through the door. Moments later, the door opens again and a man emerges. He is tall and broad-shouldered, his suit immaculate, his expression a mask of calm authority. But his eyes, cold, calculating, give him away. Elena recognizes him instantly from Pyotr's description, the man with the scar. Can I help you? He asks, his voice smooth, almost pleasant. Helena steps forward, her gaze unwavering. You're the one who's been interfering with our investigation, aren't you? The man's expression hardens just for a moment, before he regains his composure. I'm afraid you've mistaken me for someone else. I'm Mayor Kowalski, and I have no idea what you're talking about. Don't lie to me, Elena says, her voice sharp. We know about the files you took from the archives. We know about the package delivered to the school. And we know about your interest in Anna Kowalski. The mayor's eyes narrow, a flicker of something dangerous passing through them. I suggest you leave, he says, his voice low and menacing. Before you get hurt. Elena stands her ground, her resolve unshaken. We're not leaving until we get answers. What happened to the students? What did Anna know? And why are you trying to cover it up? The mayor's jaw tightens, his scar standing out starkly against his pale skin. For a moment it seems he might strike her. But then he takes a step back, his expression shifting to one of cold calculation. You're making a mistake, he says, his voice dripping with false concern. There's nothing to uncover. The students ran away and that's the end of it. Anything else is just conspiracy theory. Conspiracy theory? Elena repeats, her voice laced with disbelief. 20 children disappeared and you expect us to believe that? We have evidence, we have witnesses, and we're not stopping until we find out the truth. The mayor's eyes flick to Marek and Zofia, then back to Elena. You're playing a dangerous game, he says, his voice barely above a whisper. And you're not prepared for the consequences. Elena meets his gaze, her heart pounding but her expression unwavering. We're prepared, she says. And we're not alone. The villagers are starting to talk. The truth is coming out whether you like it or not. For a long moment they stand there, locked in a silent battle of wills. Then the mayor turns on his heel and walks back into his office, the door slamming shut behind him. The secretary, who has been watching from her desk, looks at Elena with a mixture of fear and admiration. Be careful, she whispers, her voice barely audible. He's not who he seems. Elena nods, her mind already racing with the implications of the encounter. The mayor's reaction has confirmed her suspicions. He is deeply involved in the cover-up, and he will stop at nothing to keep the truth buried. But she also knows that his threat is not idle. They are in danger, all of them. The question is, how far is he willing to go to silence them? As they step back into the fog-shrouded square, Elena feels a chill that has nothing to do with the weather. The village is no longer just a place of mystery. It is a battleground where the past and present collide, and where the stakes are higher than they ever imagined. But she is not backing down. Not now, not ever. The children deserve justice, and she will see that they get it, no matter the cost. The fog has thickened, wrapping the village in a damp, gray shroud that seems to mute even the faintest sounds. Elena stands at the edge of the forest, her breath visible, in the cold air as she stares at the rusted gate that marks the entrance to the abandoned classroom. Beside her, Marek and Zofia exchange uneasy glances, their flashlights cutting through the gloom as they prepare to enter. The discovery of the hidden basement has only deepened the mystery, and now, with the mayor's threats lingering in their minds, they know they are treading on dangerous ground. Stay close, Elena murmurs, her voice barely audible over the whisper of the fog. And keep your eyes open. We don't know what we're walking into. The gate creaks as they push it open, the sound grating against the silence. The path to the classroom is overgrown, the weeds and brambles clawing at their clothes as they make their way through. The building looms ahead, its windows dark and empty, like hollow eyes watching their approach. The air grows colder as they draw near, the dampness seeping into their bones. Inside the classroom is as they left it, the desks and chalkboard still covered in a layer of dust. But now their attention is drawn to the trap door in the floor, its wooden surface scarred and splintered where they had forced it open. Elena kneels beside it, her flashlight illuminating the narrow staircase that descends into darkness. After you, Marek says, his voice steady but his grip tight on his flashlight. Elena takes a deep breath and begins her descent, each step creaking under her weight. The air grows colder as she goes, the dampness giving way to a chill that seems to come from the very walls themselves. At the bottom, she finds herself in a small, cramped space, the walls lined with shelves and the floor littered with debris. Her flashlight sweeps across the room, revealing rows of jars, each one containing a strange, glowing liquid that casts an eerie light. What is this place? Zofia whispers, her voice trembling as she joins Elena at the bottom of the stairs. Elena's gaze falls on a table in the center of the room, its surface covered in a layer of dust. But something catches her eye, a journal, its leather binding cracked and faded. She picks it up, blowing away the dust to reveal the name embossed on the cover, Dr. Mikhail Volkov. This is the teacher's journal, she says, her voice low. But it's not just a journal. It's a record of experiments. She opens it, the page is brittle and yellowed. The handwriting is neat, almost clinical, as it details a series of tests conducted on the students. There are dates, names, and descriptions of procedures that make her stomach turn. But one entry in particular stands out. October 12, 1989. The final phase has begun. The subjects have been prepared. The fog will be the catalyst. If this works, we will have unlocked the door to a new era of human potential. Elena's heart pounds as she reads the words, her mind racing to piece together the implications. The fog, the experiments, the disappearance of the students. It all fits, but the question remains, what exactly were they trying to achieve? Marek, who has been examining the jars, speaks up. "Look at this," he says, his voice tight. "These jars, they're filled with some kind of serum. And there are labels. Subject 1, Subject 2, and so on. 20 in total." Elena's breath catches in her throat. 20 jars. 20 students. The realization hits her like a punch to the gut. "They were experimenting on them," she says, her voice barely above a whisper. "Using the fog as some kind of trigger." Zofia, who has been searching the shelves, finds a stack of photographs. She hands them to Elena, her face pale. The images show the students. Their faces blank, their eyes distant, as they are subjected to various tests. In one photo, Anna Kowalski stands in the center, her expression unreadable, her arms outstretched as if in surrender. "What did they do to them?" Zofia asks, her voice breaking. Elena's gaze falls on a final entry in the journal, the handwriting hurried and frantic. October 14th, 1989. Something has gone wrong. The subjects are changing. They're not responding to the serum as planned. The fog is consuming them. "I fear we've unleashed something we cannot control." The room seems to close in around them, the weight of the words pressing down on their shoulders. Elena closes the journal, her hands trembling. "We need to get out of here," she says, her voice urgent. "Now!" But as they turn to leave, they hear it, a low guttural sound, coming from the darkness beyond the shelves. It's not human, not quite, but it's close. Too close. "Stay behind me," Marek says, his voice steady as he steps in front of Elena and Zofi. "Elena!" Marek shouts, reaching down to grab her arm and pull her up. The creature's claws scrape the stone inches from her boot, the sound grating and final. She scrambles up the stairs, her heart hammering in her chest, and Marek slams the trapdoor shut just as the creature slams into it from below. The wood groans under the impact, splinters flying, but it holds. They collapse in a heap on the classroom floor, gasping for breath, the fog outside pressing against the windows like a living thing. The trapdoor shudders again, then again. The creature's roars muffled but no less terrifying. Zofia crosses herself, her face ashen. "What the hell was that?" Elena's mind is racing, her hands shaking as she clutches the journal. "It's them," she says, her voice hoarse. "The students, or what's left of them. The experiments changed them, and the fog. It didn't just consume them. It transformed them." Marek leans against the wall, his face pale. "We need to get out of here now, before it gets through the door." Elena nods, forcing herself to her feet. Her flashlight beam catches the wooden bird on the desk, its symbol glowing faintly in the dim light. The circle with a line through it, a warning, a ward, perhaps. She pockets it quickly, a small talisman against the horror they've just faced. Outside, the fog is thickened even more, swirling around their ankles like a living entity. The forest beyond the gate is silent, unnaturally so, and the air feels charged, electric. As they hurry toward the village, the trapdoor's final, desperate bang echoes in their minds. Whatever Dr. Volkov had unleashed, it wasn't contained. It was evolving, growing stronger, and it was no longer just the students who were in danger. The entire village was at risk. Elena's grip tightens on the journal. They had uncovered a nightmare, but they couldn't stop now. The truth, no matter how horrifying, had to come out. For the students, for the village, and for themselves. Because if they didn't, the fog would consume them all. The fog clings to the village like a second skin, seeping into every crack and crevice, muffling sounds and blurring edges. It's as if the world beyond the mist has ceased to exist, leaving only this isolated, suffocating bubble of uncertainty. Elena stands in the center of the square, her breath visible in the cold air, the journal clutched tightly in her hands. Around her, the villagers gather in hushed clusters, their faces pale and drawn, their eyes darting nervously toward the forest. The atmosphere is electric, charged with fear and whispered rumors. Marek and Zofia flank her, their expressions grim but determined. They've spent the past hour piecing together the fragments of Dr. Volkov's journal, cross-referencing them with the artifacts they've found and the stories they've heard. The picture that emerges is both horrifying and undeniable. The experiments conducted in the basement were just the beginning. The fog was not a natural phenomenon, but a weapon a tool designed to amplify the effects of the serum injected into the students. And now whatever had been unleashed was spreading, mutating, consuming. "We need to tell them," Zofia says, her voice low but urgent. "They have a right to know." Elena nods, steeling herself. She steps forward, her boots crunching on the frost-covered cobblestones. The villagers fall silent, their eyes fixed on her. She raises the journal, holding it up for all to see. "This," she begins, her voice steady despite the turmoil in her chest, "is the truth about what happened to the students in 1989. She speaks clearly, methodically, recounting the experiments, the serum, the fog. She describes the creature they encountered in the basement, the distorted remnants of the children who had once been their classmates, their friends, their siblings. The crowd reacts in waves, gasps, murmurs, tears. Some cover their mouths, others shake their heads in disbelief. But there are no denials, no attempts to dismiss her claims. The evidence is too overwhelming, the horror too real. When she finishes, the square is eerily quiet. The only sound, the faint hiss of the fog against the buildings. Then, from the back of the crowd, a voice rises, trembling but resolute. "My daughter was one of them," an elderly woman says, stepping forward. Her face is etched with grief, but her eyes burn with a fierce determination. "I knew something was wrong. I knew they didn't just run away. Thank you for telling us the truth." Her words break the dam, and the villagers begin to speak, their voices overlapping in a chorus of pain and anger. Questions fly, accusations are leveled, not at Elena and her team, but at the authorities who had kept the truth buried for so long. The mayor's name is on everyone's lips, his role in the cover-up now undeniable. Elena scans the crowd, her gaze settling on Pyotr, who stands apart from the others, his face a mask of sorrow. He meets her eyes, nods once, and steps forward. "I saw the package," he says, his voice steady. "I saw the man with the scar. I should have spoken up sooner, but I was afraid of what would happen to me, to my family, but no more. We can't let this go on." His words are met with murmurs of agreement, and the crowd begins to organize, forming into smaller groups, each with a purpose. Some head toward the town hall, intent on confronting the mayor. Others gather supplies, preparing to search the forest for any signs of the mutated students. A few approach Elena, offering their help, their support, their stories. But amidst the chaos, Elena's attention is drawn to the edge of the square, where a figure stands watching from the shadows. It's the mayor, his face a mask of cold fury, his scar standing out starkly against his pale skin. Their eyes lock for a moment, and Elena feels a chill run down her spine. He turns and disappears into the fog. But his message is clear. This is far from over. As the villagers disperse, their voices rising in determination, Elena turns to Marek and Zofia. "We've opened Pandora's box," she says, her voice tight. "But there's no going back now. We have to keep going, keep digging, until we uncover the whole truth." Marek nods, his jaw set. "And we have to protect them. From whatever's out there. And from the mayor." Zofia's eyes are wide, her face pale, but her voice is steady. "We will together." The fog swirls around them, alive and menacing, but Elena stands tall, her resolve unshaken. The truth is out, and with it a spark of hope. The villagers are no longer passive victims. They are fighters, united against a common enemy. And together they will face whatever comes next. Because the fog may be consuming the village, but it will not consume their spirit. Not while they still have the strength to resist. The fog has become a living entity, swirling and shifting with a malevolent intelligence. It clings to the edges of the village, tendrils reaching out like fingers probing for weaknesses. Elena stands at the edge of the forest, her breath coming in short, sharp bursts as she stares into the mist. Beside her, Marek and Zofia huddle close, their flashlights cutting feeble paths through the gloom. The villagers, armed with whatever tools and weapons they could find, form a tense semicircle behind them, their faces illuminated by the flickering beams of their own lights. "Stay together," Elena commands, her voice steady despite the dread coiling in her stomach. "And keep your lights on. Whatever's out there, it doesn't like the light." The group moves cautiously, their footsteps crunching on the frost-covered ground. The forest is unnaturally silent, the usual nocturnal sounds absent. Even the wind seems to have stilled, as if the world is holding its breath. But Elena knows better. The fog is watching, waiting, and it's hungry. They haven't gone far when the first scream pierces the silence. It's high-pitched, terrified, coming from the rear of the group. Elena whirls around, her flashlight beam catching a villager, a young man named Tomas. As he stumbles backward, his face contorted in horror, something emerges from the fog behind him. its form indistinct but undeniably alive. It moves with the same jerky, unnatural fluidity as the creature in the basement, its limbs too long, its skin glowing faintly in the dark. "Back!" Marek shouts, pushing the villagers away from the creature. "Get back!" "Help me," she says, grabbing the rope. Marek and Zofia join her, and together they pull with all their strength. The bell creaks, then groans, before letting out a deep, resonant clang that echoes through the village. The sound is deafening, but it's not just the noise that affects the creatures. As the bell rings, the fog outside begins to recede, the tendrils withdrawing as if burned. The creatures hiss and recoil, their forms becoming less distinct, more shadow than substance. "It's working," Zofia says, her voice trembling with hope. Elena doesn't reply. She keeps pulling the rope, the bell ringing out again and again. Its sound a defiant challenge to the darkness. The fog continues to retreat, the air growing clearer with each clang, but she knows it's only temporary. The fog will return stronger, more relentless, and when it does, they'll need more than a bell to stop it. Below, the villagers begin to stir, their faces lifted toward the sound, their expressions a mix of relief and determination. For now, they are safe, but the battle is far from over. And as the bell rings out, a warning and a call to arms, Elena knows that the real fight is yet to come. The bell's echoes fade into the night, leaving behind a heavy silence that presses against the church walls. Outside, the fog has retreated, but its absence feels temporary, like a predator circling its prey. Inside, the villagers sit in stunned quiet, their faces illuminated by the flickering light of candles. Someone has lit. The air is thick, with the scent of sweat, blood, and fear, but also with something else, resilience. For the first time in decades, the truth has been spoken, and the village is no longer blind to the danger that lurks in the shadows. Elena stands at the front of the church, her hands braced on the altar, her mind racing. The bell had bought them time, but it was only a stopgap. The fog would return, and with it, the creatures. Dr. Volkov's journal had hinted at something more, a way to permanently dispel the fog. But the details were vague, buried in cryptic notes and half-finished equations. She needs answers, and she knows where to find them. The mayor's office. "We can't stay here," she says, turning to face the villagers. Her voice is steady, but her heart is pounding. "The fog will come back stronger. We need to find a way to stop it for good. And that means confronting the man who's been keeping the truth from us." Marek steps forward, his expression grim. "The town hall. It's our best bet, but it won't be easy. He'll have it locked down." Zofia nods, her eyes scanning the room. "We'll need a plan. And we'll need everyone who's willing to fight." A murmur ripples through the crowd and hands begin to raise. Despite their fear, despite their losses, the villagers are ready. They've been living in the shadow of this horror for too long, and they're done being silent. "Good," Elena says, her voice firming. "We'll split into teams. One group will come with us to the town hall. The others will stay here, fortify the church, and keep the bell ready. If we're not back by dawn, ring it again. And whatever happens, stay together." The villagers nod, their faces set with determination. Pyotr steps forward, a makeshift bandage wrapped around his arm, where a creature had slashed him. "I'm coming with you," he says, his voice rough but resolute. "I've got scores to settle." Elena places a hand on his shoulder. "Then let's go." The night air is cold and sharp as they leave the church, the stars obscured by a lingering haze that clings to the horizon. The town hall looms ahead, its windows dark, its doors barred. But Elena knows there's another way in. The tunnels. Dr. Volkov's journal had mentioned them, a network of underground passages built during the war, forgotten by most but still accessible through the basement of the church. They move quickly, their footsteps silent on the cobblestones. The tunnels are narrow and damp, the air heavy with the scent of mold and earth. Their flashlights cast long, distorted shadows on the walls, and the sound of their breathing echoes unnervingly in the confined space. Elena leads the way, her mind racing through the journal's descriptions, trying to recall the layout. The passage opens into a larger chamber, its walls lined with old crates and rusted equipment. Ahead, a ladder leads up to a trapdoor. Elena climbs it, pushing the door open just enough to peer through. The mayor's office is dimly lit, the desk cluttered with papers and files. The mayor himself is there, his back to her, his scarred profile visible as he leans over a map spread across the desk. She signals to the others and they climb out quietly, fanning out to cover the exits. The mayor straightens, turning as he senses their presence. His face hardens when he sees them, his hand reaching for the phone on his desk. "Don't," Elena warns, stepping forward. Her voice is calm, but her hand rests on the wooden bird in her pocket, its symbol glowing faintly. We're not here to negotiate. We're here for the truth. The mayor's eyes narrow, his gaze flicking to the villagers behind her. You think you can just waltz in here and demand answers? You're fools. You don't know what you're dealing with. We know more than you think, Merrick says, his voice cold. We know about the experiments. We know about the fog. And we know about you. The mayor's expression shifts just for a moment, before he regains his composure. Then you know this is bigger than any of us. Bigger than this village. You can't stop it. Maybe not, Elena says, her voice steady. But we can expose it. And we can fight it. Starting with you. She steps forward, her hand closing around a file on his desk. It's labeled Project Nebulous. And inside are documents detailing the experiments, the involvement of government agencies, and the mayor's role in the cover-up. She holds it up, her eyes locking with his. This ends tonight, she says. One way or another. The mayor's lips curl into a sneer, but before he can respond, a low, guttural growl echoes from outside. The fog is returning, faster than any of them had anticipated. The creatures are with it, their shapes visible through the windows, their eyes glowing with an unnatural light. We don't have time for this, Zofia says, her voice urgent. We need to get out of here. Elena nods, her grip tightening on the file. Come on, we'll take what we can and go. But as they turn to leave, the mayor reaches for a button on his desk, his eyes cold and calculating. You think you can just leave? You've seen too much. You're a liability, and liabilities need to be eliminated. The room erupts into chaos as the sound of gunfire echoes from the hallway. The villagers cry out, diving for cover as bullets tear through the air. Elena grabs Pyotr, pulling him down just as a shot grazes his shoulder. Marek returns fire, his aim steady despite the panic. The back door! Zofia shouts, pointing to a small door behind the mayor's desk. Go! They scramble toward it, the mayor's men closing in from all sides. Elena reaches the door first, throwing it open to reveal a narrow staircase leading down. Go! She shouts, pushing the others ahead of her. The last thing she sees before diving through the door is the mayor's face, twisted with rage as he raises a gun and aims it at her. The shot rings out, but she's already moving, the door slamming shut behind her as she tumbles down the stairs. The sound of footsteps and gunfire fades as they descend into the darkness, the air growing colder with each step. They emerge into another tunnel, this one wider and more stable, its walls lined with old pipes and wiring. Behind them, the trapdoor slams shut, the sound of pounding echoing from above. They'll be after us, Merrick says, his voice tight. We need to move. Elena nods, her mind racing. The tunnels are a maze, but she remembers the journal's mention of an exit near the forest. If they can reach it, they might have a chance. This way, she says, leading them down the passage. The air grows colder, the walls damp with condensation. The fog is seeping in, tendrils reaching out like fingers, but they press on, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. Behind them, the sounds of pursuit grow louder, the creature's growls mingling with the mayor's men's shouts. But Elena doesn't look back. She knows what's at stake. The truth is within their grasp, and they can't let it slip away. Not now, not ever. The tunnel opens into a small chamber, its walls lined with old machinery. Ahead, a ladder leads up to a hatch. Elena climbs it, pushing the hatch open to reveal the night sky. The forest is just beyond, the trees silhouetted against the moonlight. Go! She shouts, helping the others up. They scramble out, collapsing on the ground as the fog swirls around them. Behind, the hatch slams shut, the sounds of pursuit cut off. For a moment, they lie there, gasping for breath, the weight of what they've just escaped settling over them. But there's no time to rest. The fog is closing in, the creature's growls growing louder. We need to keep moving, Elena says, forcing herself to her feet. The church. The bell. They run, the fog pressing against them like a living thing. The creatures are close, their shapes visible through the mist. But the villagers are determined, their resolve unshaken. They reach the church, bursting through the doors and slamming them shut behind them. Inside, the air is warm and clear, the candles still burning. The villagers who stayed behind look up, their faces a mix of relief and concern. Ring the bell, Elena says, her voice hoarse. Now! They climb the tower, the bell's rope rough in their hands. Together they pull, the sound ringing out across the village. A defiant challenge to the darkness. The fog recoils, the creatures hissing and retreating into the night. But as the bell's echoes fade, Elena knows it's only a temporary victory. The mayor is still out there. The creatures are still out there, and the fog will return. But they've taken a stand, and they're not backing down. She looks out over the village, her heart heavy but her spirit unyielding. The battle is far from over, but they've drawn a line in the sand, and they will not be consumed. Not while they still have the strength to fight. The bell's final echo fades into the night, leaving behind a heavy silence that presses against the church walls. Outside, the fog has retreated once more, but its absence feels like a lull in a storm, a momentary reprieve before the next onslaught. Inside, the villagers sit in exhausted clusters, their faces illuminated by the flickering candlelight. The air is thick with the scent of sweat, blood, and fear, but also with something else. A quiet determination that has begun to take root. Elena stands at the front of the church, her hands braced on the altar, her mind racing. The files they'd taken from the mayor's office are spread out before her, their contents a damning indictment of decades of lies and cover-ups. Project Nebulous, the experiments, the fog, it's all there, laid bare in black and white. But the files also hint at something larger, a network of complicity that stretches far beyond the village. The mayor is just one piece of a much bigger puzzle, and taking him down won't be enough to stop what's coming. We need to get this out, she says, her voice low but firm. She looks up at Marek and Zofia, who stand beside her, their faces grim but resolute. The world needs to know, but we can't do it from here. Not while the mayor's still in control. Marek nods, his jaw set. The radio station. It's our best shot. If we can broadcast this, get it out there, maybe we can force their hand. Zofia's eyes widen. But it's guarded, and the mayor will have cut the lines by now. We'll need to restore the signal. Elena's mind races. The radio station is on the outskirts of the village, a small, fortified building that had once been used for local broadcasts. It's still operational, but the mayor had shut it down years ago, fearing it could be used against him. Restoring the signal won't be easy, but it's their only hope. We'll need a team, she says, scanning the room. Volunteers, people who know how to fight, and people who know how to fix things. Hands begin to raise, slow at first, then more quickly. Despite their exhaustion, despite their fear, the villagers are ready. They've been living in the shadow of this horror for too long, and they're done being silent. Good, Elena says, her voice firming. We'll split into two groups. One will come with us to the radio station. The others will stay here, keep the church fortified, and be ready to ring the bell if we need it. If we're not back by dawn, assume the worst. The villagers nod, their faces set with determination. Piotr steps forward, his arm bandaged but his expression unwavering. I'm coming with you, he says. I've got a score to settle. Elena places a hand on his shoulder. Then let's go. The night air is cold and sharp as they leave the church, the stars obscured by a lingering haze that clings to the horizon. The radio station looms ahead, its silhouette stark against the darkness. It's a small, squat building surrounded by a chain-link fence, its windows barred and its door reinforced. But Elena knows there's another way in, a maintenance hatch on the side. Hidden behind a tangle of overgrown bushes, they move quickly, their footsteps silent on the frost-covered ground. The fog swirls around them, tendrils reaching out like fingers, but they press on, their flashlights cutting through the gloom. The hatch is rusted but still functional, its lock giving way with a bit of effort. Elena climbs down first, her flashlight illuminating the narrow ladder that leads into the basement. The basement is cramped and musty, its walls lined with old equipment and tangled wires. The air smells of dust and mildew, but there's also the faint hum of electricity, a sign that the station is still operational. Elena's heart lifts. If they can restore the signal, they might just have a chance. Hey there, everyone. Today we're talking about how to keep love fresh. Firstly, plan some surprise events for your partner to heat up your relationship on memorable days. Being honest and open with your partner about your feelings is also important. Remember, love isn't just about feelings. It's also about actions. If you truly care for someone, you'll take the necessary steps to keep that love alive and vibrant. So here's a tip. Don't hesitate to express your feelings of affection toward your partner. They need to feel cherished too. Let's stay positive and keep love alive. Staggers, its form beginning to dissolve into the fog. But there's no time to celebrate. The fog is thickening, the other creatures pressing against the door. We need to go, Marek says, his voice urgent. Now. Elena nods, her hands shaking as she releases the microphone. The signal is out there, her words echoing across the airwaves. It's not enough, not yet, but it's a start. They climb back up the hatch, the fog swirling around them like a living thing. The creatures are close, their growls filling the night. But the villagers are waiting, their weapons raised, their faces set with determination. To the church! Elena shouts, leading the way. They run, the fog pressing against them, but they don't stop. They reach the church, bursting through the doors and slamming them shut behind them. Inside, the air is warm and clear, the candles still burning. The villagers look up, their faces a mix of relief and concern. "We did it," Zofia says, her voice trembling. "The signal's out." Elena nods, her mind already racing ahead. The broadcast is just the beginning. The mayor will come for them. The creatures will return, and the fog will keep spreading. But they've taken a stand, and they're not backing down. She looks out over the village, her heart heavy but her spirit unyielding. The battle is far from over, but they've drawn a line in the sand, and they will not be consumed. Not while they still have the strength to fight. The church bell tolls once more, its deep, resonant clang cutting through the fog-laden air. Outside, the mist retreats, as if burned by the sound, but everyone inside knows it's only a temporary reprieve. The creatures will return, and with them, the mayor's men. Elena stands at the base of the bell tower, her hands braced on the railing, her mind racing. The broadcast has gone out, but it's not enough. They need proof, tangible evidence that can't be dismissed or buried. The files they'd taken from the mayor's office are a start, but they're just pieces of a larger puzzle. She needs something more, something that will force the world to listen. Her gaze falls on the wooden bird in her pocket, its symbol glowing faintly in the dim light. It's more than a talisman. It's a key, a ward against the fog and the creatures. But it's also a clue, a link to something deeper. Dr. Volkov's journal had mentioned it, a reference to an ancient order that had once guarded against the very thing they're now facing. If she can find them, if they still exist, they might hold the answers she needs. "We have to leave," she says, turning to Marek and Zofia. Her voice is steady, but her heart is pounding. "The mayor will come for us, and the creatures will be back. We need to get out of here, find help, and bring it back." Marek nods, his jaw set. "The forest. It's our best bet. We can lose them there, at least for a while." Zofia's eyes widen. "But the fog..." "The fog's thinner in the woods," Elena cuts in. "And we have the bird. It'll protect us." She doesn't mention her doubts. The fear that the bird's power might be limited, that it might not be enough. But it's all they have, and they have no other choice. The villagers gather around, their faces a mix of fear and determination. They've been through too much to back down now, but the weight of what lies ahead is written in their eyes. Pyotr steps forward, his arm bandaged but his expression unwavering. "I'm coming with you," he says. "I've got a score to settle, and I'm not leaving until it's done." Elena places a hand on his shoulder. "Then let's go. But stay close, and keep your lights on." They move quickly, their footsteps silent on the frost-covered ground. The forest looms ahead, its shadows deep and menacing. But it's also their best chance. The fog swirls around them, tendrils reaching out like fingers, but the wooden bird glows brighter, its light cutting through the mist. The trees close in around them, the air growing colder, the silence oppressive. The fog is thinner here, but it's still present, a constant reminder of the danger that lurks just out of sight. Elena clutches the bird, its warmth seeping into her palm, and tries to push her fears aside. They've come too far to turn back now. They've been walking for what feels like hours when they hear it. A low, rumbling sound coming from somewhere ahead. It's not the creatures, not quite, but it's not natural either. Elena's heart pounds as she raises her flashlight, its beam cutting through the fog. The light falls on a clearing and her breath catches in her throat. In the center stands an old stone structure, its walls covered in moss and vines, its roof collapsed but its shape still unmistakable. It's a chapel or perhaps a shrine, its entrance guarded by two statues, their features eroded by time but their poses still imposing. "What is this place?" Zofia whispers, her voice trembling. Elena's mind races back to the journal, to the references to the ancient order. I think this is where they were based. The Guardians of the Fog. Marek steps forward, his flashlight illuminating the entrance. Carved into the stone above the door is the same symbol as on the wooden bird, a circle with a line through it. "It's here," he says, his voice tight. "Whatever we're looking for, it's here." Elena nods, her heart lifting with a mix of hope and trepidation. This could be the answer, the key to stopping the fog once and for all. But it could also be a trap, a final test set by the order to keep their secret safe. They step into the chapel, their flashlights casting long, distorted shadows on the walls. The air inside is cold and still, the scent of damp stone and earth heavy in their nostrils. The room is empty, its altar collapsed, its pews long since rotted away. But in the center, on a pedestal, sits a box, a small wooden chest, its surface carved with the same symbol as the bird. Elena approaches it cautiously, her hand closing around the bird. Its light grows brighter, illuminating the chest, and she feels a surge of energy, as if the bird is guiding her. She lifts the lid, and inside, she finds a collection of artifacts, old scrolls, a map, and a smaller, intricately carved box. She opens the smaller box and her breath catches. Inside is a crystal, its surface smooth and clear. But as she lifts it, it begins to glow, a soft, pulsing light that fills the room. The air around them seems to shift, the fog outside retreating as if repelled by the crystal's power. "What is this?" Zofia asks, her voice awed. Elena's mind races back to the journal, to the references to the Order's final weapon. I think it's a way to control the fog, to stop it." Marek's eyes widen. "Can it destroy the creatures?" Elena hesitates, her gaze falling on the crystal. "I don't know, but it's our best chance." But as she speaks, the ground begins to tremble. The sound of footsteps, heavy, deliberate, echoing from outside. The fog is returning, thicker than before, and with it, the creatures. Their growls fill the air, their shapes visible through the chapel's entrance. "We need to go," Piotr says, his voice urgent. "Now." Elena nods, her hands closing around the crystal and the journal. "Take the box. We'll figure out how to use it later." They grab the chest and turn to leave. But as they reach the entrance, the mayor steps into the clearing, his men behind him, their guns raised. His face is a mask of cold fury, his scar standing out starkly against his pale skin. "Going somewhere?" he says, his voice dripping with malice. "You're not leaving here. Not alive." Elena's heart pounds, but she stands her ground, the crystal glowing in her hand. "We've got what we need," she says, her voice steady. "And we're not afraid of you." The mayor's lips curl into a sneer, but before he can respond, the creatures emerge from the fog, their forms distorted, their eyes glowing with an unnatural light. They move with unnatural speed, their claws slashing through the air. "Now!" Marek shouts, pushing the villagers back into the chapel. They scramble inside, the mayor's men firing wildly as the creatures close in. Elena turns, her mind racing. The crystal is their only hope, but she doesn't know how to use it. She raises it, its light shining brightly, and focuses on the fog, on the creatures. She feels a surge of energy, a connection to something larger, and she channels it, pushing it outward. The crystal's light explodes, a blinding flash that fills the clearing. The fog recoils, the creatures hissing and retreating as if burned. The mayor's men cry out, shielding their eyes, and in the chaos, Elena grabs Piotr's arm. "Run!" she shouts, leading the way back into the forest. They move quickly, the crystal's light guiding them, the fog thinning as they go. Behind them, the creatures' growls fade, the mayor's shouts lost in the distance. They don't stop running until they're deep in the woods, the chapel and the clearing far behind. They collapse against a tree, gasping for breath, their hearts pounding. The crystal's light has dimmed, but it's still glowing, a soft, pulsing reminder of what they've found. "We did it," Zofia says, her voice trembling. "We got out." Elena nods, her mind already racing ahead. The crystal is powerful, but it's not enough. They need to figure out how to use it, how to stop the fog once and for all. And they need to get the truth out, to force the world to listen. She looks at the villagers, their faces pale but determined. They've been through hell, but they're still standing. And as long as they're together, as long as they keep fighting, they have a chance. "We're not done yet," she says, her voice firm. "But we're closer. And we're not going to stop until this is over." The forest is quiet, the fog swirling around them like a living thing. But Elena stands tall, the crystal glowing in her hand, her spirit unyielding. The battle is far from over, but they've taken a stand. And they're not backing down, because the fog may be consuming the world, but it will not consume them. Not while they still have the strength to fight.